It's social distancing at the Chamber, Wednesday night edition. My name is Garrick Taylor. As always, joined by the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer, for a segment we call Happy Hour with Hammer. Hey, Glenn.
Hey, good night, Garrick.
Doug Ducey today convened one of his occasional conference calls with the business community. He touched on a number of familiar topics, including things like the sort of week-by-week assessment of openings and closings, different capacity levels, things like that. Anything jump out at you on today's call, Glenn?
Yeah, a few things. And I like that he had Dr. Chris, who oversees the health portion of this, Sandra Watson, who oversees the general economic recovery part, and Debbie Johnson, who focuses her efforts on getting our tourism economy back on track.
Yep.
It was really a very positive call. We've made a lot of progress over the last several weeks in getting the disease going in the right direction. The last 3 weeks, we've seen pretty dramatic progress. In fact, I think in terms of the rate of spread, according to the R0 number, we're one of the top 2 or 3 states in the country. New York Times for the last week has had us as one of only 2 or 3 states that has seen a decline in cases. So the mitigation efforts have been working, and that was sort of a nice way to frame the beginning of the call.
Glenn, the governor touched on the dramatic increase in the availability of testing, but also that we have not come close to maxing out the capacity of that new testing. The governor talked about that. What do you make of that? Why are more Arizonans not taking advantage of this expanded capacity?
There is a little bit of a mystery there, and I've heard different explanations. So this was not part of the call, but this is my take. What has happened, I believe, and it's borne out by the numbers, is that we've had a pretty significant decline in the cases and the spread. So people are most likely to go get tested if they feel sick or they know that they've been exposed to someone. So what I believe is that over the last several weeks, there's been a pretty significant, I'm not going to say dramatic, but pretty significant decline. I think the other issue is that there have been a number of reports, and they're correct, that some of the testing opportunities have come with delays. So that's possible that's depressed some of the turnout. But I just don't think that's a big part of it right now, simply because the reports on social media and in the mainstream media have been pretty clear that you can go get tested, you can take advantage of these free testing opportunities with pretty short waits. I think where we're going to need to go on testing is as we're trying to reopen not just parts of the economy that have been closed, but to get our schools and our 1 million K through 12 students, not to mention all of our university students, back at some point this fall for in-person learning. Having a good testing system and constant testing is going to be very, very important, as will be the continued testing of individuals, Arizonans who are in our long-term care facilities, as well as those who work there. So I think as our testing ramps up, Garrick, we're going to have to figure out how to really get people into more of a routine who feel fine, who either are fine or asymptomatic, to get them to be tested. And the governor talked a little bit about that, and it is going to require some work.
So Glenn, your point is that if you feel fine and you haven't been exposed, going to get a test is probably not top of mind. There's a slight change now that we've heard, which is get the test.
Get the test. So you're looking at someone right now. I feel good. I'm knocking on wood. As I get more engaged in the economy again, it would be good for me to be tested from time to time. So it's getting people like me tested. Now, a month ago, that probably wouldn't have made sense. And also given at the time, there was a backlog in terms of the demand for testing. You want it focused on those most in need. And one thing I should point out and the governor's pointed this out on a few different occasions, is that for the highly vulnerable population, some of these wait times you've been reading about that we all agree needs to be dramatically reduced. For people at high risk, the testing is coming around within a 24 or 48 hour period. So there is a queue system that's going on right now. But I think help is on the way, and by the end of August, we should have capacity in the state for well over 60,000 tests a day.
Glenn, one of the questions that was posed on today's call dealt with the return to school, which for some students begins electronically tomorrow, or at least in the next several days. The governor, Glenn, said that it's probably about 30% of parents want junior in the front row first thing tomorrow in person. Another 30% says no way, they'll be in electronic setting only. And then 40% are wait and see. Let's go hybrid, and if the numbers bear it out, then maybe we can make the cautious return to the classroom. Does that breakdown sound about right to you?
The governor was saying that's generally the case for Arizonans, or was he talking about my specific household?
Okay. He was saying statewide. So I guess the breakdown sounds about right for the Hammer House.
It really does. It's a fascinating thing, as just Arizonans, not just parents, but students are really thinking through what they feel comfortable with. So I applaud Governor Ducey and Superintendent Hoffman, the bipartisan dynamic duo on education. They've really done a good job, in my opinion, of trying to provide opportunities to meet the needs for all Arizonans while keeping our teachers, our administrators, our personnel safe. So I'm optimistic that we're going to, in Arizona, not only be able to pull this off on K-12 education, but do so in a way that's a model for other states.
You heard the governor use the term hybrid a number of times when he was talking about it. Glenn, you've talked about the need to be flexible throughout, especially this first semester. Sounds like that's the order of the day.
Well, they need to think a little bit, even like what's going on with Major League Baseball. The Yankees were supposed to play, I think, was it in Philly?
They're stranded in Philly.
They're stranded, so be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get maximum, just the way I want to be careful with this. We want maximum economic output safely. Let's get maximum educational output safely. And that's going to mean, at least for the first several weeks, if not for the first couple of months, a hybrid model, versatility. I believe August 7th is the date that our Arizona Department of Health is supposed to come out with metrics that will be guides for schools. So I really feel this is going in the right direction. And I just want all the viewers here in Arizona, or if you're watching across the country, to know this is something all 50 states are grappling with. There's no single state in the union that I'm aware of that has really figured this out. So again, we should be humble. We should learn from each other. And what I am very confident about is that in Arizona and across the United States, we're going to provide for a better educational experience for our students this summer and fall than we did in the spring.
Right. Yep. We know more today than we did yesterday, right? We're learning a little bit more.
We know more, and we keep making a lot of progress when it comes to distance learning, when it comes to the issues of equipment, when it comes to the issues of Wi-Fi. And, again, I just think it's important that we continue to work productively together. This is not, we've said the term a million times, novel coronavirus. It's novel. We're still learning. As we're on the show, we don't have every bit of information. We think we have an idea. It doesn't. We know at this point it doesn't harm kids the way it does older Americans. But on transmission issues, there's a lot of it's a different story.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to say about
Sure.
the governor's event with business people across the state. I liked how he worked through a number of issues that were asked by Arizona business people across the state when it came to theaters, when it came to gyms, when it came to bars, when it came to some of the areas, even when it came to border issues. And, it's an administration that's working very hard through these issues.
Yep.
And part of what happened about 5 or 6 weeks ago is the state was on fire. And the CDC, the CDC and Dr. Birx, who leads on the medical side, Vice President Pence's task force, came out with something that's really interesting. And that if you come away with one thing from the show, this sort of was what struck me from the whole conversation, that if you did the mitigation efforts, closing bars, restricting things like theaters, clubs,
Congregate settings.
Congregate settings, and that's a big one. People wore masks, did the physical distancing. You did those mitigation efforts. That basically is the equivalent of a stay-at-home order. So when you think about all the things that you could still do in the economy,
right,
including elective surgeries and all that kind of stuff, that formula, you can understand why that made a lot of sense. And one of the things that the governor made clear is that, in his orders, in terms of the things that have been paused, every 2 weeks there's a review. And there's lots of efforts underway, even as we speak, in terms of how can we safely get fitness centers and other things like that open. So I thought it was a really constructive call. And one additional point I thought was interesting, and Sandra Watson of the Arizona Commerce Authority have just done a great job of doing all sorts of programming for small business, including alerting people on how they can get access to the different small business loans that are provided on the federal level. And the numbers are quite staggering. And just on the Paycheck Protection Program, 81,000 Arizona companies, $8.6 billion of economic activity.
Yeah.
You add in the emergency idle disaster loans, we're talking another 2 billion plus. So a lot of good work going on to keep our economy going as we try to protect as many Arizonans as we can.
That's right. All right, let's give a look to the calendar. Tuesday is primary day in Arizona. Glenn, it's just a good civic thing to do, is to participate in elections. But in Arizona, like a lot of states, primary day is game day, isn't it? This will decide for many districts who's going to be at the Capitol in January.
We still there's a few competitive seats, but you're right. Probably 80% or so of the legislative districts, whoever gets out of the primary is likely to advance to our capital. So it's very important for people to vote. I believe today. So by the time you're watching this, it's probably too late to send in your mail-in ballot if that's how you choose to vote. So Garrick, what are our viewers supposed to do who have the ballot, want to participate, and we want them to participate?
We want you to participate. Yeah. So through
What
the power of the internet, we'll put in the show notes in our YouTube link a link to the Secretary of State's office where you can find your local county recorder. But here in Maricopa County, there is a polling location finder, an early vote center. If you want to vote in person prior to Election Day, you can do so. Go to your county recorder website, look it up. As Glenn said, don't drop it in the mailbox yet. Probably by the time you are seeing this, it'll be too late. But still a chance to participate in Tuesday's election. And this one is for all the marbles in most districts. Glenn, when we issue at the chamber, when we issue endorsements in the primary, and again, we might revisit some of these for the general, but for the primary, we issue our endorsements. What do we look for in a candidate we endorse?
We put out a questionnaire for all non-incumbents, all people that are basically running for office for the first time, or they're looking to return to office. That it's a pretty lengthy questionnaire. I think it's around 80 questions from all sorts of issues: transportation, education, tax policy, regulatory, healthcare, you name it. And then we have a scorecard for all the incumbents that wish to return. And Garrick, what we're looking for is certainly a high score on the issues that we care about to make Arizona even more competitive and a better state than we are today. Even though we're very proud where we sit today, we always want to improve. But the other thing that we always look for is we want people that we can work with, that want to get things done. At the end of the day, we all have a lot of ideas. We all have a lot of opinions, but our sweet spot are those lawmakers on both sides of the aisle that can get together and pass good policy that can be sent to our governor and signed into law. And I'll just say, I feel that over the years, and this year in particular, we've done a very good job of finding a bipartisan slate of lawmakers who will continue to make Arizona a great place to live to work, and we'll get that information out to our viewers, and we appreciate those who consider our views.
I'll be sure to put a link to our endorsements in the show notes. Democrats and Republicans, all of whom who have one thing in common, and that's finding and forming a governing coalition.
And it is possible, because people, social media or what have you, it could get pretty painful out there. But I'll just say, you think of our state legislature, their last act in terms of something that was substantive was a really very strong bipartisan skinny budget that was sent to the I can't recall, or with overwhelming bipartisan support.
Yep.
And we can pass good policy in this state on a bipartisan basis. And let's face it, as we're not a red state anymore. We're not a blue state. We're a purple state at this point. And it's going to become more and more important for policies to have bipartisan support to make it to the governor's office.
That's right. Yep. All right. Well said. We'll get a lot of those notes in the on the YouTube link. Glenn, we will catch you on tomorrow's show.
Thanks, Garrick.